Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel, continuing the Swamp Thing read along with Swamp Thing number 43. This is a fill-in issue. We've been going strong with American Gothic. We just wrapped up a zombie story arc. Before that, we had a werewolf, we had vampires. Taking a little bit of a break. My guess is that Stephen Bissette probably needed some time. So Alan Moore planned for that, wrote this fill-in issue, which is okay. We've seen some great fill-in issues in the past in this run. There are kind of two consecutive ones, actually, Pog, and then the House of Secrets 92 kind of like reprint issue, which both are really great. I know Pog is very well beloved, and even though I'm not the hugest fan of it, it's a very much beloved issue, and I love the reprint issue as well. This one's okay. I can honestly maybe take or leave this one. I like the idea of it. I don't know that it lives up to the standards of those other fill-in issues or just the rest of the series itself. We'll go ahead and we'll jump into it. It opens with Swamp Thing just walking away with his back to us. And this is the last time we will see the real Swamp Thing in this issue. This is truly a cameo in his own series. I've read through a couple letters columns that some disgruntled readers, very few, most of the letters are very positive. But I do remember seeing at least one where someone said, like, stop making Swamp Thing a side character in his own story. They were complaining that Abby was taking up too much attention. I think this was during the Arcane trilogy. And if I'm sure that person probably really hated this issue. Swamp Thing's really got nothing to do here. But as he's walking away, one of these tubers on his shoulder falls off, lands on the ground, and is picked up by a human hand. Who we see on the next page is a hippie type of fella. This is Chester, and Chester is actually going to become a regular character in Swamp Thing continuity. This is his first appearance, not nearly as expensive as John Constantine's first appearance. Nobody really cares about Chester, but he is going to be a character that sticks around for a little while. The name of the issue is Windfall, written by Alan Moore, with art by Stan Woch and Ron Randall. So we know that our typical creative team of Bissette and Toddlebin, they're off this month, probably catching up on the real stories. But I think the art is pretty good throughout this. I like the interesting panel layouts we're going to see. I think both Woch and Randall do a really good job of just kind of keeping the mood right. Although it's certainly not nearly as good as the usual group. Behind him, I think that these trees are meant to look a little bit like Swamp Thing. Got a little bit of like his brow and his little nose canopy. So they're dropping that little like Easter egg in there. We get a little more Swamp Thing in his own title. But he's picked up this tuber and he's hitching a ride back to Baton Rouge, singing some hippie songs, singing Strawberry Fields Forever. Gets back home, and as he's walking into his house, get a quick little glimpse. He's got an Allman Brothers poster. In the bottom right corner here, we see Zap. And if you don't know, Zap Comics is like the quintessential countercultural underground comic. It's the underground comic series that brought like Robert Crumb into prominence, featured some other great artists like S. Clay Wilson, and just a lot of others. It's a really interesting series. If you ever find a Zap comic in your local comic shops bins, pick it up. You'll find some interesting stuff in there. You're bound to find some Robert Crumb, which is always good to see. And you're going to see something you've never seen before. I can guarantee you that. But if we couldn't tell from his appearance, it's his reading of Zap Comics that tells you what kind of guy this guy is. He's a countercultural man, and he is investigating this yam because He is he's a drug dealer. Well, essentially, I mean, he peddles in hallucinogens, uh, and he does his research, which I love to see. He's not just picking stuff up and taste testing it, doing some research. He's got his plant books. He's got a microscope, and I like this method of showing us a great deal of time is passing. Not only does the table get more and more cluttered as the night goes on, but we actually have the crescent moon in the background that is going out of sight as time goes. Kudos to them for not using just like a full moon. That's kind of the go-to, is whenever there's a moon that needs to be depicted in comics, they always make it a full moon. But good restraint there. While Chester is looking into this yam, he gets a knock on the door from his friend Dave, who is in pretty rough shape. Chester asks him how Sandy is doing. Sandy is Dave's wife. And Dave breaks down, says that she's dying. What am I going to do? She knows she's going soon. At the hospital, they said the cancer was inoperable. And so, like she said, she'd rather be at home when it happened. But she's in pain, man. God, it's hurting so much. And he's essentially here to ask Chester if he has anything for her pain. Like, is there anything that any drug he can give her that will ease her and make her final day, better, like not as pain filled. And unfortunately, Chester's in the middle of a cleanse, so he doesn't really have anything in the apartment except for the tuber, except for the little yam that he's cut up. And he says, "Look, it probably won't do any good, but I found this out in the swamps today. I've been trying to identify it. I can't quite place it, but it's got some similarities to datura root, so maybe it's some unknown psychedelic. If you want it, it's yours, no charge." Nice guy, Chester. He's just trying to do something nice for this guy. I like the good perspective here on this, I guess, this like little hookah thing. It's round and mirrored, so we get that kind of distortion in the images. I think it's represented really well there. And Dave takes him up on it. He takes a piece of the tuber home with him, and Chester tries to just, tell him, it's okay, it's okay. Get her home. Tell her, send her my best. And this puts Chester, down in the dumps. He's crying because he feels bad. He wishes he could do more. He wishes there was, Dave and Sandy are nice people. But as he's crying, he gets another knock on the door, and it's this guy, Milo. Milo is not nearly as friendly as Dave, and you can sense that just in their exchange. Milo asks Chester about this woman that he was dating, where she is. He says they split up a couple months back, but Milo's kind of like looking for her. And Milo's also looking for drugs. He's also here to get something from Chester. And this time, Chester just tries to tell him, like, I got nothing. Like, I don't have anything. Sorry, I'm on a cleanse. Come back another time. And Milo on his own sees the tuber and says, "What's this? I want it." Chester says, "No, you can't have it. I don't even know what it is yet." Milo says, "No, it's dope. I want it." So he says, "I'll give you $15 for it." And Chester just kind of resigns himself. He knows that this is only going to end with Milo taking it anyway. So he says, "All right, $15, that's fine." Milo doesn't even have the money on him. He says, "I'll owe you one." This pisses off Chester very much, but he can't really do anything about it. Get very different reactions from Chester from these two interactions. And now we are leaving Chester, and we're going to watch Sandy and Milo take this new drug. So Dave brings Sandy the yam, and he says, try it. Maybe something will happen. And sure enough, she bites into it. And this is kind of like, this issue is basically a jumping off point from Rite of Spring. Like, the Rite of Spring was a literal springboard that established if you eat Swamp Thing's fruit, then you will go on a psychedelic journey. In Rite of Spring, the eating of the fruit was a way to consummate the relationship between Abby and Swampy. But in this one, that's not the tone that we're going for here. But We're going to see what other effects that this fruit can have on the people who eat it, or the vegetable. I don't know what you want to call it. It's a yam, basically. So she eats it, and we get that quick transition to what Abby saw in Rite of Spring, which is the colors changing drastically, the bright yellows, the bright reds. So she starts her trip. Milo, meanwhile, is sitting at a bar complaining that his trip hasn't started yet. He took it. He thinks that he got shafted, that it's not going to do anything. But while he's sitting there, he starts to feel like he's burning up, and he starts hallucinating that he's on fire. And he gets these moments where Swamp Thing's memories are kind of coming into him as well. So he's remembering Alec Holland. Alec Holland. My name is I'm Milo Flynn. I woke up in the lab. The men were gone. There was a bomb under the table. Alec Holland. No, Milo Flynn. I reached for it, but it was too late. So he's kind of getting Alec Holland and Swamp Thing's memories mixed up here from ingesting that tuber, and he starts freaking out in the bar. And we're going to get these parallel scenes of Sandy having a good trip and Milo having a very bad one. And Sandy is having a very nice time the way that Abby did. So she's seeing that all life is connected, just like Abby did. And I like how throughout this, the cat kind of keeps changing the way it looks based on her perception. So like we have the normal cat here, and then we have this one with the very exaggerated cat's eye kind of makeup shadow, the ears that are really pointy. And we see it there as well. You see the whiskers that are extremely like long and pronounced. And then it goes back to the regular cat there when we're only seeing things the way Dave sees them. But she's feeling great. She sees that, the world is incredibly beautiful. She says, you, me, Felix, everything. It's all the same thing, like an ocean, but all divided up and contained in separate bottles. And she kisses him, and that gives him a little residual kind of high. So everything's a little bit enhanced for him as well, but not nearly as much because he didn't fully ingest it. But she wants to go outside. She wants to see the rest of the world like this, and so she goes outside to see the vibrant colors. Meanwhile, Milo has been thrown out of the bar, and his confusion about these thoughts that are coming into his head come to a head when he looks into a puddle and he sees himself as this swamp creature. He's like Swamp Thing if he was built like Jim Carrey's Grinch. It's not a very flattering style for Milo. And he's freaking out that these bugs are all over him. He's got roots and sticks that are growing all over. And it's going to continue his bad trip. Over here, we're continuing Sandy's exploration of the connectivity of the world. She says, she can feel everything all over the garden, all over the world, in Russia, in China. And she can sense that, it's all getting wet, and the water changes from solid to liquid to gas, moving around the planet. And there's separate icicles that melt and vanish, separate puddles that dry up and they're gone, but they're not gone. They just changed state is all. Icicles, snowflakes, they're all unique. They've each got their own beautiful shape. And when they melt, it's gone forever. That's where I am now. I've got my own shape, and I like it, and I don't want to lose it, but icicles are frightened of the sun. There's no need. There's no need for all this fear. So this is helping her kind of come to terms with her in her mortality, her impending death, that it's just a changing of the state of her being. It's not really, her current state will disappear, but she won't. She'll just transform in some way. And Milo himself is also transforming in a way. He's still running around, seeing himself as this kind of Swamp Thing creature, and he starts to see other characters from Swamp Thing's past. Bumps into the Patchwork Man, who is a bum trying to get a couple bucks. General Sunderland shows up with this robot from, I think, something 8 or something. Over here, he runs past the Monkey King and the Vampire Mother from the Alan Moore run. And he's just running through these horrors, not knowing what they mean, because he doesn't have the context for those memories, because he didn't watch my previous episodes, which you should do if you also don't know what all this is a reference to. Back to Sandy and Dave. They are... You know what? I'll keep reading her narration, because I think that it's really what Alan Moore wants to say with the issue. Droplets, all distinct, individual, with their own little highlights, their own little reflections of the world. And they run together and lose their individuality, becoming a puddle, a lake, an ocean, merging with all the other droplets, flowing together. We spend our lives pressing our bodies against each other, trying to break the surface tension of our skins, to unite in a single gleaming bead. It's almost as if we know. My love, the sun is coming, and our unique shapes will soon be gone. Let us rehearse that moment when our spirits finally trickle together. Let's run through it just one last time. And they begin to make love out in, I guess, the street or the park, wherever they are. One last beautiful embrace. Meanwhile, Milo seeing more creatures. We got this werewolf from the Bernie Wrightson run. He's just running through bodies that are being picked apart by crows. I think this is supposed to be like one of the creatures from Pog. I think, although the face is a little too alien. I don't know. But he runs out into the middle of the street because he's losing his mind. But we cut back first to Sandy and Dave, and they, again, one last kiss before she fades off and changes her state. These sections are nice. They're pretty. I don't think that they're as impressive as like the Rite of Spring sequences, but they're good. I think they're perfectly fine. Tatiana Wood's colors do a lot of great stuff. Just the musculature and the way that it's all highlighted here, and the way that the color fades out when the trip kind of ends and she passes away. Meanwhile, Milo's running to the street and a truck's bearing down on him, and he sees Anton Arcane driving the truck, and he gets hit, and that's the end of Milo. Dave goes to visit Chester the next day and tells him, thank you so much for giving me that. Her last moments were really wonderful. It really wasn't a bad experience. That thing made everything beautiful. And he says, I don't know what that thing is, but somebody should market it quickly. Thank you for giving it to her, Chester. You're a good man. And this makes Chester feel good about himself. He did something nice, and it worked out. But on the flip side, Milo's junkie friend shows up complaining that Milo had a really bad trip right into the street. He died. And he had this, he thought he was burning alive. But it ends with him asking, do you have any more? Because now he wants to try it. And because, a junkie's a junkie. They're going to try to get their next fix. Chester is looking at the tuber because he's come to the conclusion that when you eat it, it just makes you see the world and feel more like you already are. So if you're a good person, it brings out the good in you. If you're a bad person, it brings out the bad of you. That's a common comic book trope. It's like, Captain America's serum. So he's thinking, should I try it? I want to see, am I a good person? Am I a bad person? This will tell me the truth. And he kind of chickens out, and he doesn't take it in the end. And that's it. That's the end of the issue. We got a little Swamp Thing shadow being cast there. I don't know, I guess just having fun. I don't think there's any real symbolism there. But next up is Bogeymen. That's going to be the issue 44 of Swamp Thing. We'll cover that next week. So there you go. That is Windfall. Let me know what you think about this issue. Like I said, I think it's okay for a fill-in. I could probably take it or leave it. But there's some good stuff about it, and it's certainly not a bad issue of comics. I just don't know that it's up to the standard that we've been seeing in the earlier issues. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.